Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Sebastian Whitmore stood at the front door of his suburban Chicago home, keys trembling slightly in his hand in the cool October air. As a seasoned electrical engineer, he was accustomed to precision and predictability. Circuits were either powered or disconnected, with no middle ground. But at this moment, he was about to face a truth that would overturn everything he understood about certainty. 7:30 in the evening usually meant warm lights, the aroma of dinner, and his wife Vivian's gentle smile. Today, there was only silence. Vivian had mentioned that her yoga class would run late, but an inexplicable unease was spreading through Sebastian's heart. Pushing open the front door, he set down his toolbox and took off his dust-covered work boots. The house was filled with the scent of Vivian's usual lavender aromatherapy, and everything looked normal. He walked toward the kitchen, planning to grab something simple to eat, and then take a hot shower to wash away the day's fatigue. Passing by the bathroom, Sebastian noticed something in the trash can. A white stick was protruding from beneath crumpled tissues. At first, he thought it was a thermometer or something else, but when he bent down to look closer, his blood seemed to freeze in his veins. It was a pregnancy test. Positive. Sebastian's legs suddenly lost strength, and he had to lean against the bathroom wall to maintain his balance. Two pink lines clearly and unmistakably announced a fact: Vivian was pregnant. But this was impossible. 3 months ago, Sebastian had secretly undergone a vasectomy without Vivian's knowledge. He told Vivian that day he needed to inspect the electrical system of a commercial building, when in reality, he had the outpatient procedure done at a private clinic. The doctor assured him the surgery had a 99.9% success rate. They had been married for 5 years, and Vivian was always talking about having children, but Sebastian was never sure if he was ready to take on the responsibility of being a father. His childhood was filled with painful memories of his father's absence, and he feared he would repeat the same pattern. The vasectomy seemed like the safest choice. If Vivian never knew, she would never be disappointed. Now, holding this pregnancy test, Sebastian realized he wasn't facing the problem of an accidental pregnancy, but the reality of betrayal. He mechanically walked to the living room and sat on the gray sofa they had chosen together. Every item in the room told the story of their shared life. The wedding photo on the wall, Vivian's collected trinkets, the artwork they bought during their vacation to California. Now everything felt like props and a lie. Sebastian's engineer brain began automatically analyzing this problem. Vivian had indeed been different lately. She had become more careful about her diet, declined several invitations to drink together, and always seemed exhausted. He had thought this was just the effect of her new yoga program. Yoga classes. Sebastian thought about those special training sessions Vivian had started a few months ago. She said they were private small classes led by a professional trainer named Damien, and the class times had become increasingly irregular, sometimes extending very late. Vivian always excitedly talked about Damien's expertise. He was young, charismatic, and a former professional athlete. Everything was beginning to take on disturbing meaning. Sebastian stood up and began searching the house for more evidence. He wasn't a suspicious husband and had never checked Vivian's phone or personal items, but now the situation was different. In Vivian's dresser drawer, he found a gym membership card with Damien's photo, a man in his early 30s with blonde hair, a perfect smile, and an athletic build. Sebastian felt his stomach turn. He returned to the living room, trying to think calmly about what to do next. Should he directly confront Vivian, or should he gather more evidence? His logical thinking told him he needed more information, but his emotions were already on the verge of collapse. Just then, the sound of keys at the front door rang out. Vivian was back. Sebastian. Vivian's voice came from the foyer, carrying her characteristic warm tone. Are you home? In the living room, Sebastian replied, trying to make his voice sound normal. Vivian walked into the living room, her face flushed from exercise. She wore yoga clothes with her hair in a ponytail, looking just as beautiful as she had on countless evenings over the past 5 years. But now Sebastian looked at her and could only think of that pregnancy test. How was today's class? Sebastian asked, his voice sounding stiff even to himself. Great, Vivian answered excitedly, sitting down on the sofa next to him. Damien taught us some new balance techniques today. He's really talented. Hearing Damien's name, Sebastian felt a surge of anger rise in his heart, but he forced himself to stay calm. Sounds good. You look a little tired. Vivian nodded. Yes, these classes are really physically demanding. I think I need to go to bed early. She stood up and gave him a light kiss on the forehead. How was your day? Everything was normal, Sebastian lied. Watching Vivian walk toward the bedroom, Sebastian knew he couldn't wait any longer. Tomorrow he would take action. The next morning, Sebastian deliberately got up earlier than usual. He told Vivian he had an emergency project inspection and needed to leave early. Vivian nodded drowsily and gave him a lazy goodbye kiss. But Sebastian didn't go to work. Instead, he parked his car several blocks away and then walked back to his own house. He wanted to confirm his suspicions. At 9:30 in the morning, Vivian left the house, driving her Honda Accord toward the direction of the fitness club. Sebastian waited 10 minutes, then used his back door key to re-enter the house. He went straight to Vivian's phone charger area, hoping she had forgotten to take her device. Unfortunately, the phone wasn't there. But in Vivian's desk drawer, he found some credit card statements. Carefully examining these statements, Sebastian noticed some suspicious expenses: expensive lunches, gift shop purchases, and transactions from small boutiques he had never heard of. More importantly, he found some vague entries in Vivian's diary. Vivian had never been someone who detailed her daily life, but the recent months' entries had become frequent. Most entries were brief, like D was especially gentle today, or worried M will find out. Sebastian's heartbeat accelerated. M obviously referred to him, and D could only be Damien. Just as he was preparing to search further, the sound of keys at the front door came. Sebastian's blood froze. Vivian was back, at least an hour earlier than expected. He quickly put everything back in place and then tiptoed toward the back door. But Vivian's voice stopped him in his tracks. Mom, I really don't know what to do anymore. Vivian was on the phone, her voice sounding frustrated. I can't continue like this. Sebastian hid in the corner of the kitchen, his heartbeat roaring in his ears. Of course, I'll tell him it's his child, Vivian continued. Damien isn't ready to have a child yet, and if I push too hard, he might leave me. Besides, Sebastian has always wanted children, so this should be easy for him to accept. He's so naive. Sebastian felt the entire world collapse beneath his feet. He clenched his fists, nails digging deep into his palms. Vivian had not only betrayed him, but was planning to deceive him with another man's child. I know this sounds terrible, Mom, but I have no other choice. Vivian's voice became more anxious. If Sebastian discovers the truth, he'll leave me. If Damien knows I'm pregnant, he'll leave me too. This is the only way. Sebastian couldn't listen anymore. He carefully slipped out the back door, walking to his car with trembling hands and feet. In the car, he sat for a long time, trying to control his anger and pain. Vivian's words echoed repeatedly in his mind. He's so naive. Naive. This word cut through his heart like a knife. He thought he was protecting their relationship, while Vivian was mocking his trust behind his back. Sebastian started the car, but he didn't go to work. Instead, he drove to the other side of the city and stopped at a quiet park. He needed time to think, needed to formulate a plan. If Vivian thought he was too naive, then she was about to discover how wrong she was. Sebastian took out his phone and began searching for divorce attorney information. But this was just the beginning. If Vivian wanted to play games, he would ensure he won. Sebastian sat in the park for 2 hours, a detailed revenge plan forming in his mind. As an engineer, he was accustomed to solving problems systematically, and this time was no exception. He needed more than just evidence. He needed to completely destroy the deception network that Vivian and Damien had carefully constructed. First, he needed professional help. Sebastian took out his phone and searched for Chicago's best private detective agencies. He found Whitfield and Associates, a company specializing in marital infidelity cases. He immediately called. Whitfield and Associates, this is Margaret Whitfield. I need to investigate my wife's infidelity, Sebastian said directly. Of course, sir. We can arrange a meeting. Would 3 o'clock this afternoon be convenient for you? Sebastian looked at his watch. It was now 11:30 in the morning. Yes. Next, Sebastian drove to his bank. As the family's primary breadwinner, he controlled most of the financial accounts. He needed to ensure Vivian couldn't access any funds when he took action. At the bank, Sebastian met with his financial advisor, Audrey Sterling. Sebastian, good to see you. What can I help you with today? I need to reorganize our account structure, Sebastian said. I want to convert all joint accounts to individual accounts. Audrey frowned. This is a major change. Does Vivian need to agree as well? No, Sebastian replied calmly. According to our account agreements, I have the right to make this decision unilaterally. This was true. When they opened these accounts, Sebastian, as the primary income source, had ensured he legally had complete control. He had never thought he would use this clause, but now it became very useful. An hour later, when Sebastian left the bank, Vivian could no longer access any of their joint funds. He had also canceled her credit cards and removed her from his health insurance plan. Every action was precise and cold. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sebastian sat in the office of Whitfield and Associates, facing Margaret Whitfield, a professional woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a direct attitude. Tell me about your situation, Mr. Whitmore. Sebastian detailed his discoveries, the pregnancy test, the overheard phone call, and his suspicions about Vivian and Damien's relationship. Margaret took careful notes. What kind of evidence do you want? Margaret asked. Everything. Sebastian's voice was resolute. Photos, videos, financial records, communication records. I want enough evidence to completely destroy their lives. Margaret nodded. We can do that, but it will take time and money. Money isn't an issue. Time. Give me 2 weeks, Margaret said. I'll give you a complete report, including every detail of their relationship. Sebastian signed the contract and paid the advance. Now all he had to do was wait and act normal. Returning home, Sebastian found Vivian in the kitchen preparing dinner. She looked in good spirits, humming a tune. This ignorant happiness made Sebastian angry, but he forced himself to stay calm. How was your day? Vivian asked, giving him a kiss. Good, Sebastian replied. How about you? I have some good news to tell you. Vivian's eyes sparkled with excitement. Sebastian's heartbeat accelerated. Was she going to tell him about the pregnancy? I'm considering expanding my yoga teaching, Vivian continued. Damien thinks I have potential to open my own studio. Of course it was Damien. Sebastian forced himself to smile. Sounds great. He even said he might invest, Vivian said excitedly. We could be partners. Partners? Sebastian almost laughed out loud. They were indeed partners of some sort, just not the kind Vivian imagined. During dinner, Vivian continued talking about her business plans with Damien. Every word pierced Sebastian's heart like a needle, but he maintained an interested expression and even asked some constructive questions. Have you and Damien discussed funding requirements? Sebastian asked. Not in detail yet, Vivian replied. But he said he has some investor friends who might be interested. Sebastian nodded. He wondered if these investor friends included Damien's wife Celeste. He decided to investigate this angle. Over the next 2 weeks, Sebastian lived a double life. During the day, he worked normally. In the evenings, he talked with Vivian, pretending to be interested in her yoga project. But when Vivian didn't know, he was preparing for her destruction. Margaret Whitfield's team worked efficiently. They tracked Vivian and Damien's movements, photographing them in intimate poses at various locations. They also obtained Damien's personal information, including his marital status and financial records. Sebastian learned that Damien had been married for 3 years. His wife Celeste was a nurse, and they had been trying to have children. This information gave Sebastian a brilliant idea. 10 days later, Margaret called Sebastian. We have everything you need, she said. Can you come to the office this afternoon? Sebastian left work and drove to the detective agency. The folder Margaret had prepared was 3 inches thick, containing every detail of Vivian and Damien's relationship. Photos showed them at restaurants, hotels, and even at Damien's house when Celeste wasn't there. Financial records showed Damien had purchased expensive gifts for Vivian, including jewelry and clothing. Most shocking of all, they had even photographed Vivian leaving an obstetrics clinic. According to our investigation, Margaret said, your wife has been pregnant for about 3 months. She meets regularly with Damien, and their relationship has been going on for at least 6 months. Sebastian carefully studied every document, every photograph. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. There's one more thing, Margaret added. We investigated Damien's background. He has a history of concealing income, possibly involving tax fraud. This information might be useful to you. Sebastian took the additional files. Damien was not only an unfaithful husband, but also a tax cheat. This was becoming more and more interesting. Thank you very much, Sebastian said. Send me the bill. Returning home, Sebastian hid all the documents in his home office, a place Vivian never entered. Now it was time to begin the next phase of his revenge plan. That evening, while Vivian was in the bathroom, Sebastian used her laptop to log into her email account. He knew her password because she had never thought to hide anything from him. How ironic. Vivian's inbox was full of emails from Damien, ranging from sweet talk to explicit sexual suggestions. Sebastian forced himself to read every email, gathering more evidence. In one email, Damien mentioned his wife Celeste. She's visiting her sister this weekend. We can meet at my house. Sebastian recorded the date and time. This information would soon become very useful. The next day was Friday, and Sebastian took a half day off. He drove to the fitness club where Damien worked and parked in a hidden spot in the parking lot. He wanted to see with his own eyes the man who had destroyed his marriage. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Damien came out of the fitness club and walked toward a red BMW. He did indeed look as Vivian had described, young, healthy, and charismatic. But to Sebastian, he was just a target about to be destroyed. Sebastian followed Damien to an upscale coffee shop where he met with Vivian. Through the coffee shop window, Sebastian could see them talking intimately, with Vivian's hand resting on her belly. This scene made Sebastian angry, but it also strengthened his resolve. He took several photos and then drove home. Now it was time to implement the key part of his plan. That evening, Sebastian worked late in his home office. He was preparing a special email for Celeste Mitchell, Damien's wife. The email was short but effective. Mrs. Mitchell, I believe you should know about the relationship between your husband and my wife Vivian Whitmore. Attached is a photo of the pregnancy test. Your husband is the father of the child. I thought you had the right to know this news. Sebastian Whitmore. He attached the pregnancy test photo along with some of the most compelling evidence Margaret Whitfield had provided. Then he clicked send. Now he just had to wait. The next morning, Sebastian's plan began to take effect. His phone rang at 9 o'clock, an unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Mr. Sebastian Whitmore? Yes. This is Celeste Mitchell. I received your email. Sebastian's heartbeat accelerated. I'm sorry you had to learn about this way. I need to meet with you. Celeste's voice was trembling but resolute. We need to discuss what we're going to do next. They agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop, far from downtown. Sebastian arrived early and chose a corner table. A few minutes later, a petite woman with brown hair and tired eyes walked in. This was Celeste. Mr. Whitmore? She approached his table. Please call me Sebastian. He stood and pulled out her chair. I'm sorry you have to go through this. Celeste sat down, clutching a folder tightly in her hands. I need to confirm that the information in your email is true. Sebastian took out the evidence files Margaret Whitfield had prepared. Here's a complete record of their relationship. Celeste flipped through the documents, her face growing paler and paler. When she saw photos of Damien and Vivian embracing in front of a hotel, her hands began to tremble. We've been married for 3 years, Celeste said softly. We've been trying to have children. The doctor said the problem might be with me. She looked up at Sebastian. Now I discover he already has a child with someone else. Sebastian felt a wave of sympathy, but he suppressed this emotion. Now was not the time to show weakness. What do you plan to do? A flash of determination crossed Celeste's eyes. I'm going to destroy him, just like he destroyed me. Sebastian smiled. I think we can help each other. Over the next hour, Sebastian and Celeste developed a detailed plan. Celeste revealed that Damien had been concealing income and evading taxes. She had evidence that his fitness club engaged in financial irregularities. More importantly, Damien had used her credit to obtain business loans, and if these loans defaulted, she would bear legal responsibility. I've already contacted my lawyer, Celeste said. Divorce proceedings begin next week. But I want to do more. Sebastian nodded. I have an idea. Would you be willing to cooperate with me on something? That afternoon, Sebastian returned home to find Vivian pacing in the living room, phone pressed to her ear. She looked anxious. Damien, answer the phone, she was saying. I need to talk to you. Sebastian pretended not to notice her anxious state. Is everything all right? Vivian quickly hung up. Of course, everything's fine. Just some yoga class scheduling issues. But Sebastian could tell she was lying. Celeste had obviously begun taking action. That night, Sebastian pretended to go to bed early, but actually he was waiting for Vivian's moves. Sure enough, at midnight, Vivian quietly left the bedroom to make a phone call in the living room. Sebastian tiptoed to the top of the stairs, listening to Vivian's conversation. Damien, you finally answered. Vivian's voice was full of panic. What happened? Why does Celeste suddenly want to divorce you? Sebastian couldn't hear Damien's reply, but from Vivian's reaction, things were not going well for them. What? Someone sent her photos of us. Vivian's voice became sharper. Who would do that? Sebastian suppressed the urge to laugh out loud. Sebastian couldn't possibly know anything, Vivian continued. He's too focused on work to notice. Again, this dismissal of him. Sebastian's anger was reignited. All right, we need to meet to discuss this, Vivian said. Tomorrow night, I'll find a way to get out. The next day was Sunday, and Vivian told Sebastian she was attending a special yoga workshop and would be back very late. Sebastian showed understanding and even gave her some cash for dinner. But Vivian didn't know that Sebastian had already arranged for Margaret Whitfield's team to track her every move. And Celeste would also participate in this surveillance operation. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Vivian drove to a hotel downtown. Sebastian and Celeste sat in Celeste's car, parked across from the hotel parking lot. They usually use room 303, Celeste said coldly. I've already confirmed it. Sebastian nodded. Margaret's team was already positioned in the hotel, ready to take more evidence photos. Are you sure you want to do this? Sebastian asked Celeste. Once we start, there's no going back. Fire burned in Celeste's eyes. I'm sure. Make them pay. At 8 o'clock, Sebastian and Celeste walked toward the hotel. Celeste had a room key card, a spare she had stolen from Damien's wallet. They quietly went up to the third floor and stopped in front of room 303. Sebastian could hear sounds from inside, Vivian's laughter and Damien's murmurs. These sounds made him sick, but they also strengthened his resolve. Celeste inserted the key card, and the door lock made a soft click. She slowly pushed open the door, with Sebastian right behind her. The scene in the room was exactly as they expected. Vivian and Damien were in bed, completely unaware they had been discovered. Margaret's photographer was also there, shooting from the balcony door. Surprise, Celeste said loudly. Vivian and Damien whirled around, their expressions changing from passion to fear. Vivian screamed and covered herself with the bedsheet. Damien jumped up, trying to find his clothes. Celeste, Damien stammered. This isn't what you think. Celeste laughed coldly. Oh, I think this is exactly what I think. She turned to Sebastian. Sebastian, meet my husband Damien and your wife Vivian. They obviously know each other. When Vivian saw Sebastian, her face turned white as paper. Sebastian, I can explain. No explanation needed, Sebastian said calmly. The photos say everything. Just then, Margaret Whitfield and her photographer walked in from the balcony. We got all the photos we need, Margaret announced. Damien angrily pointed at them. This is illegal trespassing. Actually, no. Celeste waved the key card. This room was booked with my credit card. Technically, this is my room. Sebastian felt enormous satisfaction. Their plan was proceeding perfectly. Vivian, Sebastian said, his voice ice cold. Our marriage is over. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Vivian began crying. Sebastian, please let me explain. This isn't what you think. This is exactly what I think, Sebastian replied. And worse. He turned to Damien. Damien, enjoy your upcoming divorce proceedings. And the tax investigation. Damien's face turned pale. What tax investigation? Celeste smiled. I've already reported your income concealment to the IRS. They're very interested. Sebastian and Celeste left the hotel room, leaving Vivian and Damien in chaos and panic. In the elevator, Sebastian felt a satisfaction he had never experienced. What's next? Celeste asked. Now we let the legal system work, Sebastian replied. But first, I need to go home and pack my things. Sebastian returned home and began systematically packing his personal belongings. He knew Vivian would be back soon, and he wanted to finish packing before she arrived. He packed his clothes, personal documents, a few favorite books, and some sentimental items. He left everything related to Vivian, including their photos together and gifts. On Vivian's desk, Sebastian left a brief note. Vivian, I know everything about Damien and the child. Don't contact me. My lawyer will communicate with you about the divorce. Also, I want you to know that I had a vasectomy 3 months ago, so I've always known that child isn't mine. Sebastian. Sebastian placed the house keys on the kitchen counter then picked up his luggage and walked toward the door. As he walked out the front door, he heard Vivian's car pulling into the driveway. He didn't look back and walked straight to his car. When Vivian got out of her car, she looked very upset, her eyes red and swollen. "Sebastian," she shouted. "We need to talk." Sebastian started his car and rolled down the window. "We have nothing to talk about, Vivian. You chose Damien. Now enjoy the consequences of that choice." He drove away, seeing Vivian collapse crying on the driveway in his rearview mirror. Sebastian had already booked an apartment downtown. It was a modern building with good security and professional management. He hoped Vivian wouldn't be able to find him, at least until the legal proceedings were complete. Over the next few days, Sebastian handled the divorce through his lawyer Victoria Blackwood. Victoria was one of Chicago's top divorce attorneys, known for her ruthlessness and efficiency. "The evidence you've provided is very impressive," Victoria said in their first meeting. "Your wife has no position to argue from." Sebastian nodded. "I want a quick and thorough divorce. I don't want to give her anything. Given the evidence of infidelity, we can demand a complete property division in your favor," Victoria said. "She also won't be able to claim alimony." This was exactly what Sebastian wanted to hear. Meanwhile, Celeste's lawyer was also proceeding with divorce proceedings against Damien. More importantly, the IRS had begun investigating Damien's fitness club. A week later, Sebastian received news from Margaret Whitfield. Damien had been arrested on charges of tax fraud and business loan fraud. The evidence Celeste provided had led to an investigation of his entire business operation. "His fitness club has been shut down," Margaret told Sebastian. "The bank is repossessing the property." Sebastian felt deep satisfaction. Damien had not only lost his wife, but also his business and freedom. Over the next few weeks, Sebastian focused on rebuilding his life. He excelled at work and even accepted a new project requiring more responsibility. His colleagues noticed his change, but no one inquired about details. Meanwhile, Vivian's life was rapidly falling apart. Sebastian learned through his lawyer that Vivian had lost her job at the yoga studio. Apparently, news of her infidelity had spread, and the studio management didn't want to be associated with such scandal. Vivian had also tried to contact Sebastian through mutual friends and voicemails, but Sebastian refused all communication attempts. He had instructed his lawyer to handle all matters related to Vivian. A month later, Sebastian received a call from Victoria. "I have some interesting news," Victoria said. "Vivian is trying to claim she's entitled to half of your 401k retirement fund and the house." Sebastian frowned. "Based on what?" "She claims the infidelity was caused by your emotional neglect. She also claims she's pregnant and needs financial support." Sebastian laughed coldly. "The fact that she's pregnant only proves her infidelity. I have medical proof that I cannot father children." "Exactly," Victoria agreed. "I've already submitted your vasectomy medical records." This completely destroys her argument. What did her lawyers say? They've basically given up. Vivian is now asking for a quick divorce, hoping for some financial settlement. "My answer is no," Sebastian said firmly. "I won't give her a penny." Victoria laughed. "I thought you'd say that. I'll respond accordingly." 2 months later, Sebastian's divorce was finalized. Vivian got her personal belongings and an old car, nothing else. The house, all financial assets and investments went to Sebastian. Vivian was also required to assume the credit card debt she had incurred during the marriage. More importantly, the court record documented Vivian's infidelity, meaning she would have difficulty gaining advantage in any future legal proceedings. Sebastian felt enormous victory, but his revenge wasn't complete yet. Through Margaret Whitfield, Sebastian learned that Vivian had moved into her mother's small apartment on the other side of the city. She had found a part-time job at a fast food restaurant, barely able to cover basic expenses. Damien's situation was worse. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for tax fraud. His fitness club was closed and all assets were seized by banks and the government. Celeste got her divorce and, due to Damien's criminal behavior, was free from any debt responsibility. Sebastian decided to make one final strike. He contacted a private investigator, not Margaret Whitfield, but another expert who specialized in investigating personal history and backgrounds. "I want complete historical records on Vivian Whitmore and Damien Mitchell," Sebastian told the investigator. "I want to know if this was their first time doing this." 2 weeks later, the investigator returned with shocking findings. Damien had a history of deceiving married women. with at least 3 other cases involving married women whose husbands eventually discovered the truth. More interestingly, Vivian also had a history of infidelity in her previous relationship. Sebastian realized he wasn't Vivian's first victim, and she was likely looking for her next target. This discovery made his revenge feel even more justified. Sebastian decided to ensure Vivian's pattern was broken. He contacted a company specializing in background checks and arranged for them to create a detailed report documenting Vivian's infidelity history. This report would appear in any future background checks, effectively warning any potential victims. Meanwhile, Sebastian began rebuilding his social life. He joined a professional engineering network, started attending social events, and even considered dating again. 3 months later, at an engineering association dinner, Sebastian met Audrey Sterling, an architect specializing in sustainable energy building design. She was smart, independent, had her own career, and most importantly, she was honest. They began developing a relationship slowly. Audrey knew Sebastian had recently divorced, but she didn't know the specific details. Sebastian decided to take it slow, ensuring he wouldn't make the same mistakes this time. Meanwhile, Vivian's life continued to deteriorate. Sebastian learned through a friend of a friend who worked at the fast food restaurant that Vivian often worked late shifts, apparently struggling to pay medical bills and living expenses. Her pregnancy was now obvious, making it even more difficult to find better work. Worse still, Damien in prison refused to acknowledge paternity of the child. His lawyer advised him to deny any long-term relationship with Vivian, claiming they were only casual acquaintances. When Sebastian learned this news, he felt cruel satisfaction. Vivian had not only lost Sebastian, but also Damien. She was now truly alone. For months later, Sebastian received an unexpected call. It was Vivian. Sebastian almost hung up, but curiosity overcame anger. He wanted to hear what she had to say. Sebastian, Vivian's voice sounded tired and desperate. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I need your help. I don't think we have anything to discuss. Vivian, Sebastian replied coldly. It's about medical insurance, Vivian continued. I'm pregnant and I don't have insurance. The doctor says there might be complications. Sebastian felt a surge of anger. That's not my problem. But you're my husband, Vivian cried. Legally, you have responsibility. Sebastian laughed coldly. We're divorced, Vivian. I have no legal responsibility to you or your child. But this child, if you could accept it, Vivian said desperately, we could start over. Sebastian felt shock and rage. Even in this situation, Vivian was still trying to manipulate him. Vivian, listen carefully. Sebastian's voice became dangerously low. I have medical proof that I cannot father children. I know that child is Damien's. I know you tried to deceive me. And I know you've been lying throughout our entire marriage. There was silence on the other end of the phone. If you contact me again, Sebastian continued, I'll file for a restraining order. You've disappeared from my life. Keep it that way. Sebastian hung up and immediately blocked Vivian's number. That evening, Sebastian had dinner with Audrey. Their relationship was developing well, and he was considering whether to tell her the complete story about Vivian. You look troubled, Audrey noticed. What happened? Sebastian hesitated, then decided to be honest. My ex-wife contacted me today. She tried to manipulate me again. Audrey nodded. Divorce is complicated. What did she want? Money and support. But she forgot that she chose to leave me for someone else, Sebastian said. Audrey reached over and took his hand. You did the right thing. The past is the past. Sebastian felt a warmth and comfort he hadn't experienced in a long time. Audrey was not only beautiful and intelligent, she understood and supported him. This was a stark contrast to Vivian's manipulation and deception. 6 months later, Sebastian's life had completely changed. He moved into a larger apartment, accepted a higher-paying job, and his relationship with Audrey had become more serious. They were discussing travel plans together and even talking about future possibilities. Meanwhile, Sebastian learned through his information network that Vivian had given birth to a girl. She was alone in the hospital with no support. Damien was still in prison, refusing to acknowledge the child. Vivian's mother was apparently also ashamed of the entire situation, providing only minimal help. Sebastian felt a twinge of sympathy, but quickly suppressed it. Vivian had made her choices, and now she had to bear the consequences. A year later, Sebastian and Audrey decided to get married. It would be a small, intimate ceremony with only close family and friends attending. Sebastian had never thought he would trust love again, but Audrey proved that honest, loyal women still existed. A week before their wedding, Sebastian received a letter from Vivian. He hesitated, then decided to open it. The letter was short. "Sebastian, I heard you're getting remarried. I want to congratulate you and apologize again for my actions. I know I hurt you, and I regret my choices every day. I hope you can find happiness. I named my daughter Lily after your grandmother. It's the only apology I can give you. Vivian." After reading the letter, Sebastian felt a complex mixture of emotions: anger, sympathy, satisfaction, even a trace of sadness. Vivian naming her daughter after his grandmother was a choice she had no right to make, but it was also a desperate gesture of apology. He folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Then he took out a lighter, lit the letter, and watched it burn to ashes in an ashtray. Vivian's apology wouldn't change anything. She was still a lying, unfaithful woman who had destroyed their marriage. But now none of that mattered. Sebastian had a new life, built on a foundation of trust and honesty. Sebastian and Audrey's wedding was perfect. It was a celebration filled with love and hope, completely different from his first wedding with Vivian. At that wedding, he now realized Vivian might already have been thinking about other men. On their honeymoon, Sebastian and Audrey discussed their future plans. Audrey wanted children, and Sebastian began reconsidering fatherhood. He decided to tell Audrey about his vasectomy and the possibility of reversal surgery. "If you're sure you want children," Sebastian said, "I'm willing to have the surgery reversed. But I need to know we have complete trust between us." Audrey looked at him, her eyes full of understanding. "Sebastian, I know your ex-wife hurt you. But I'm not her. I chose you, only you." Sebastian felt deep comfort. This was what he had been looking for: an honest, loyal woman who truly loved him. 2 years later, Sebastian and Audrey welcomed their first child, a healthy boy. Looking at his son, Sebastian felt unprecedented happiness and satisfaction. This was the family he had always wanted, built on a foundation of truth and love. Meanwhile, Sebastian occasionally heard news about Vivian. She was still struggling to support herself and her daughter. She had moved several times and changed jobs multiple times, but seemed never able to achieve stability. Sebastian learned that Vivian had tried to contact several single men, but her background check record made this difficult. Any serious man would avoid her after discovering her history. Damien was released after completing his 2-year sentence, but his life was also completely ruined. He couldn't find work in the fitness industry and eventually found a low-paying job at a delivery company. He never acknowledged Lily as his daughter and even refused DNA testing. Sebastian realized his revenge had been completely successful. Both Vivian and Damien had paid enormous prices for their betrayal. They had lost everything: money, reputation, career prospects, family support. More importantly, they had also lost each other. But most significantly, Sebastian had gained something better than revenge. He had found true love and happiness. 3 years later, Sebastian and Audrey were considering having a second child. Their marriage was very happy, built on mutual respect, trust, and honest communication. Sebastian had never hidden anything from Audrey, including his history with Vivian. Audrey understood his past, but more importantly, she helped him build a better future. One weekend afternoon, while Sebastian was playing with his son in the park, he saw a familiar figure. Vivian was pushing a stroller with a girl about 3 years old inside. Vivian looked much older than Sebastian remembered her. Her hair had lost its luster, her face showed signs of fatigue, and her clothes looked cheap and worn out. The little girl was cute, with dark hair and big eyes, and did indeed look like Damien. Vivian noticed Sebastian, but she didn't approach. Instead, she just stood at a distance watching him and his son. Sebastian could see the longing and regret in her eyes. She could see the life she could have had, the life she had chosen to give up. Sebastian felt no anger or hatred. Instead, he felt a calm satisfaction. Vivian could see his happiness and understand what she had lost. This was more effective than any verbal revenge. He picked up his son and turned to walk in another direction. He gave Vivian no acknowledgement, no smile, no nod. To him, she was just a stranger, someone connected to his past but irrelevant to his present and future. When Sebastian and his son left the park, he felt complete closure. His revenge was finished, not through violence or crazy actions, but through wisdom, patience, and strategy. Both Vivian and Damien had paid the price for their choices, while Sebastian had gained something better than what he lost. That evening, Sebastian returned home to find Audrey in the kitchen preparing dinner. She gave him a warm hug and a sweet kiss. "How was your day?" Audrey asked. "Perfect," Sebastian replied, his voice full of genuine satisfaction. He looked at Audrey, then at their son playing with toys in the living room. This was what his life looked like now, full of love, trust, and happiness. Vivian's betrayal had once nearly destroyed him, but ultimately it led him to find what was truly worth having. Sebastian realized that sometimes life's greatest betrayals can become its greatest blessings. Vivian's choice had freed him, allowing him to find true love. Her lies had taught him to recognize the value of truth. Her infidelity made him cherish Audrey's loyalty even more. Revenge was sweet, but happiness was sweeter. Sebastian Whitmore was no longer the naive husband betrayed by his wife. He was now a stronger, smarter, happier man. He had learned how to protect himself, how to recognize deception, and how to build truly meaningful relationships. As he held Audrey and watched their son, Sebastian knew he had won the most important victory. He had regained his faith in love and trust. Vivian had thought she could manipulate him, exploit his kindness and trust. But ultimately, it was these very qualities that helped him build a life truly worth having. On the other side of the city, Vivian sat in her cramped apartment, looking out at the rain. Lily was already asleep, and she was alone with her regrets. She thought of Sebastian, of the life she once had, of everything she had given up for a moment's thrill. But these thoughts couldn't change anything. Choices had been made, consequences had appeared. Vivian had to continue living, bearing the weight of her decisions. And Sebastian, in his happy family, had completely moved on. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was full of hope. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.